You're watching Fugitive Red-Eye, and welcome to another book review. Today I'll be reviewing Politics by Aristotle. Now, Aristotle actually coined the term politics, hence why this book is literally just called Politics. That's pretty crazy to think about. But I previously reviewed Aristotle's book, Nicomachean Ethics, which this is considered to be the follow-up to, and I can see why. They definitely go hand in hand. Whereas Nicomachean Ethics focuses more on the ethical side of things and outlining the sort of ethos of ethics, right? This is more focused on politics, as you could imagine. It outlines several key factors in the nature of the way things just are structured. He talks about different types of states, different sizes of states, what it takes to make something a state. And by state, we obviously don't mean stuff like, Washington or New York or anything like that. Like, state as in country or nation. Big S state, rather than little s state. He talks a lot about human nature in it as well. He talks about the relationship between husband and wife, the relationship between father and children, the relationship between the state and its people, master and slave, and so on. It also outlines the different types of governments that are created. It talks about constitutions. The types of governments it outlines are democracy, oligarchy, aristocracy, monarchy, tyranny, and he talks about the perversions of governments, tyranny being one of those perversions. Aristotle says a lot of things in it, obviously. It's very wordy, as with the other. I definitely think, however, this book is absolutely a step up from Nicomachean Ethics. This is easily a way better book. I enjoyed it a lot more. And it contains such based lines as, the relationship of the male to female is that of the superior to the inferior, of the ruler to the ruled. Very base stuff like that. Obviously, slavery is just given as a given, because it was written in a very different time. There's a lot of interesting stuff here. Aristotle gives you a lot to think about with governments and what is the best type of government to have to outline a state. Interestingly, there are obviously a few things I do disagree with him on, as you'll always find. Aristotle is very pro-censorship. In the later parts of the book, he talks about how profanity and, offensive speech shouldn't be, tolerated in polite society and stuff like that. Another thing is Aristotle is in favor of abortion up until the point of, consciousness, which obviously the metric for measuring it was way different back then too, but as you know, I am against abortion always. Conception is the beginning of life. So that's another area I find myself in disagreement. Aristotle himself was sort of the grandfather of objectivism. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that in my last review. He was one of the only philosophers that Ayn Rand actually respected. But it's very interesting to hear the way he outlines the nature of things, and he makes a lot of excellent points about what would be more ideal in other situations. Obviously, I don't agree with everything in it, but it's a very good, thought-provoking look to kind of dissect the concept of politics and sort of our logos and ethos behind that. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a book that everyone should probably read at least once. A lot of people aren't going to like to read something like this because it's very matter-of-fact. It doesn't have a narrative that it tells. But one thing it does do that is also really interesting is it does give us sort of summaries of how contemporary governments at the time were running. So we get to learn about the different governments that were currently going on in Greece at the time he wrote it, and the different nature of those governments. And that was really interesting because obviously I haven't studied ancient Greece as much as I could. So that was an interesting look into that. And he does kind of critique those governments and how they run and talk about, which ones were better than others and things like that. It's a very interesting read, so I would recommend checking it out if you are into that sort of thing. But this has been Fugitive Red-Eye. I hope you've enjoyed this review of Aristotle's Politics. Have yourself a good day. Have a good one. Toodles!